opening credits was Tupac, and he was wearing the first hat that I ever drew.
Your Twitter, and was it Aaron Rodgers was wearing one of your hoodies just recently?
Yeah, he was wearing one of our,
right. Wholeheartedly believing in something to the point where you visualize it and you feel it to your core, which is what we call conviction, right? It's believing in something. And then I think what tends to start happening is in the mind, you start seeing opportunities, you see doors open for what you truly want.
Dreaming and manifesting as a young child, it came to life. And now it's the top selling hoodie. And I can't tell you how many different people when I travel the world.
I think the biggest thing is you feel like a sense of shame and guilt that you have these aspirations and then you're here. So you have this cognitive dissonance of this is who I want to be. Why am I here? So you're trying to make these big leaps, but it really is about the small wins to get back up there because... Hey friends, you're tuned in to the Learn or Be Learned podcast, a show where wisdom meets curiosity in order to discover the human experience. I'm your host, Shiva D, and remember, you either learn from or you're learned from. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back, friends, to another great episode. I have Jason Franklin here. He has a sports company brand and has worked with so many other big known names. The NBA, that's where he got his big start. And, I'm going to let Jason talk a little bit about, what he does and what he got into. So, Jason, thanks for being here. And would you mind sharing a little bit about your journey for the audience?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Shiva. Appreciate you. Name's Jason Franklin, co-founder of Teak Apparel. We're a lifestyle, modern American comfort wear brand, really focused on fan fashion. We felt that there was a void at the marketplace 17 years ago, and people were going to the must-go, must-do thing wherever you could possibly imagine around the world. There was a sporting event or a concert or a brewery tour or a gaming event or a company headquarter tour, Mercedes-Benz, whatever it was. But a lot of times it was people traveling from all over the world, spending all sorts of money, flights, hotels, and meals, and tickets. And they were used to more of this boutique fashion that you could find at niche department stores and boutiques. And they were going to these events, and there was a really boxy tee, an uncomfortable sweatshirt that felt like cardboard, a jersey, and a couple hats. Right. And it was just sort of an afterthought. So we sort of felt that there was this need for this customer that is willing to spend more money if it was a really nice product. So we started Sportique and really built that fit, fabric, and feel that sort of that comfort wear that you'd want to put on every day. You can wear it every day. You can dress it up, dress it down. But we really built our brand off the backs of so many global brands, whether it's the NBA or the Dave Matthews Band or Home Depot or Mercedes-Benz or Coca-Cola, Shaky Knees Music Festival, and outside of Atlanta, really wherever fans were going, that's where you can find the Sportique brand.
Right. So what helped you get your big break in this company?
Well, we got lucky and we worked really hard. I like to say we got lucky, but there was a lot of hard work that went into it. I started in the apparel industry when I was 11 years old. So that was a few years ago. And my business partner, was running the team shops for the Phoenix Suns, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Arizona Coyotes in Arizona. And we went to the NBA first. He said, "Hey, this is the vision that we have. Your tickets are incredibly expensive to go to your events, and you have a fan that's willing to spend money on nicer product if they could have that option." And we had like 7 samples that we had created and sort of showed them the vision of what we were trying to do. And they gave us a license, which is unheard of at this point. Usually it's 1,000-page documents and you got to sign your life away, and, which we had to do later on. But, and so we got in with the NBA in that same week, we jumped on a plane to Charlottesville, Virginia. One of my favorite bands and one of my partner Matt's favorite bands is the Dave Matthews Band. And you might have heard of them. They're out of Charlottesville, Virginia. They have an incredibly passionate fan base. They tour every summer like clockwork, and they have fans that travel from all over the world in the summertime to come see them perform. Went down to Charlottesville and met with some of the band's management and sort of gave them the same vision that we had with the NBA, but gave it to the Dave Matthews Band and said, you have a passionate fan base that travels to this venue and that venue, and they do a whole West Coast tour with you, and they want to buy something nicer. And at that point, they had $25 t-shirts and $40 hoodies and $15 hats. And like, if you could help us elevate our price points and make a nicer product that our fans are going to love, and it's not going to fall apart after one wear, like, you got our business.
Right.
So we're like, okay, great. So those two counts that say that those, and then being able to tell prospective clients that we're in NBA arenas and we work with the Dave Matthews Band. Those are two reputable brands, global, that people understand and know. So that sort of help us get our foot in the door, and really that was our big break.
So I do want to take a step back because I think it's important for the future topics of mindset and everything is your backstory, which was really interesting. And I know it might be a little redundant for you because you've probably said it a few times on a different podcast, but I think the audience they'd get a lot of value out of hearing your backstory because it's kind of unique, right? You started very young.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very difficult situation. You know, I had some bit of an abusive situation in my household. Was dealing with that and a lack of confidence and all sorts of stuff. And this crazy head of hair. It's not as crazy as it once was. And
like the Jufro.
Yeah, exactly. And and so I wanted a hat so desperately to wear that would cover this crazy head of hair that would support my favorite team at that time. It was the Chicago Bulls, because everything Michael Jordan at that point.
Right.
Just started drawing, and that was sort of my escape that I found. And that was one of the things that no matter what I was dealing with, I sort of like, kept to myself. I'd sit in my basement, or even at lunchtime at school, I would go sit in the floor of the bathroom stall and I would just draw. I draw hats. Draw my favorite, what I thought would be cool on hats. And sure enough, my sister was babysitting the neighbors one night, and she got sick, so my mom sent me over there to replace her. And there's hats all throughout the house, like sports hats throughout the house. It was like the Willy Wonka of hats, just like the Gene Wilder edition. I don't know about the Johnny Depp edition, but there was hats just all throughout the house. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest house ever. And I was just blown away. And parents come home and I got to ask, what do you do? I said, well, I own a baseball cap company and we make hats for professional sports leagues. Oh, right.
Perfect.
So, here I am, 11 years old, and I'm just like, do you mind if I run home and show you some of the hats that I drew? Oh, sure. He's the neighbor. So I ran home and hustled back and threw a bunch of pieces of art in front of him, hats that I sketched pretty poorly. And he looked at them and said, yeah, actually, there's a couple in here that I actually really like. I think they'd be cool. Do you think I could make them? It's just like, wow, oh my goodness. Yeah, of course. That'd be incredible. It'd be a dream. So it took a little while to get prototypes made, multiple rounds. And at that point, I mean, just everything took longer. It wasn't like, here, approve this photo sample. It was like physical samples get sent from China back and forth. So it's like almost a year-long process. And he started to tell me that there's some people that were interested in some of the sports teams and some of the national sports store chains, whether it's the Foot Locker or Champs, that was interested in buying some of the hats that I designed. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, cool. And I had a couple friends, and we went and saw a movie called Poetic Justice. It was a movie with a gentleman by the name of Tupac Shakur, Janet Jackson. And within the first few scenes after the credits, opening credits, was Tupac, and he was wearing the first hat that I ever drew. So I think that was like the first aha moment for me. I was 12 years old. Seeing that was just sort of like, okay, like, no matter how difficult the situation you're dealing with at home, or the difficulties you are making friends, whatever the circumstances are, this is your path. This is your destiny. This is what you're supposed to do. So I just tunnel vision to do that. So working for this company, summer job at the age of 13, and worked even after school sometimes. And it became sort of my happy place because no matter what was going on at home, I had all these hats and drawing, sketches and samples and things around me that I loved and was passionate about. So, yeah, that's how I got my start. And then that I worked for this company through high school and through college, and just it was a family owned business. And as close as I was to the family, I wasn't part of the family. And I also I kept manifesting. The hats were awesome. I love wearing hats because I finally had something to wear. It's a crazy head of hair, but I kept manifesting something bigger. It was manifesting someday owning my own company, but also this hoodie that I could put on that could transport me to a different place. So whatever was happening, I couldn't, I mean, at that age, you're 13, you're 14, you're 15, you can't get away from the situation that you're in.
Right.
And so I needed a piece of armor, if you will, something that I could put on that no matter how hard, no matter how crazy my day was, that it could transport me to out of there, at least mentally, but give me this physical, like, okay, relaxing. And I started realizing that there's so many other people out there, so many other children that were dealing with some of the situations that I were in, or just people dealing with sickness or illness or their mental health, or just a tough day or lost family member, whatever it was, that also needed that comfort. And that was sort of the thing that was calling my name. And so 17 years ago, I said, okay, we got to do this. I got to go out on my own. And we started Sportique.
That's incredibly fortunate to have figured it out at that age, right? To know what kind of impact you want to make. I could only imagine seeing your hat on the big screen. It was probably correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe one of the first times you were able to start thinking really big after that. It's like that aha moment. You're like, wow, I can think big.
Yeah, that was a huge aha moment for me. I mean, it just kept going from there. It was as an athlete or different music star. It was just different people. And I think the way the world aligns, or no matter how difficult of the situation, what was going on, there would, and sometimes I would just be like, I need to just take myself away from this altogether.
Right.
And do something pretty drastic and do something pretty permanent. There would always be something. Turning on TRL and seeing a rapper wearing one of my hats. Okay, snap out of it.
Right. I think I literally saw your Twitter, and was it Aaron Rodgers was wearing one of your hoodies just recently?
Yeah, he was wearing one of our,
right.
Milwaukee Bucks is part of Milwaukee Bucks, and was wearing our Olsen hoodie. And that's to me, that's really the crazy thing. This is, glad you brought that up. That's the Olsen hoodie. I mean, so that's been our top selling hoodie for the past 12 years. And that's the incredible thing, is like that hoodie did come to life. That hoodie that I was dreaming and manifesting as a young child, it came to life. And now it's the top selling hoodie. And I can't tell you how many different people, when I travel the world, they have that hoodie now, and they tell me different stories, whether it's good or whether it's really sad or really positive. It's been both. It's like, I lost my dad and I didn't leave my house for a week and I just wore your hoodie. Or I was, my wife's water broke. We were running out of the house, got her to the house. We got the bags packed. I realized I didn't have my Olsen hoodie, and I wanted my child, for the first thing that I was holding him with, to feel like me and be as comfortable as possible. So we drove down the street. I realized I didn't have my Olsen hoodie. I drove back. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I gotta have a hoodie." It was like a commercial, and he got his Sportswear Olsen hoodie that got to the airport and then sent me pictures. Sure enough, like him holding his son, wearing his Olsen hoodie. So, there's been so many different stories we've had like that, but and it's that hoodie. So that really is special to me, and that people that really then know and look into the backstory of it is like, wow, okay, so no matter what your situation is, no matter how difficult your situation is, whoever the people we're talking to today, if you do have a passion, um, that if you work hard enough, that your dreams can come true as well.
Right. It's one of those things, right, where people in society often see the success on display, but most people don't even see what's happening behind the curtains. If I recall what you had mentioned earlier, you said you were drawing sketches on the bathroom stall on the floor. Is that
On a
correct?
piece of paper in the bathroom stall. So
Yeah.
I didn't have kids to sit with it a lot. This was in a lot of high school, actually, early on in high school, freshman year, sophomore year. Like I didn't have anybody to sit with, and kids, they're mean, and I was just like, I just
Yeah.
didn't want to be. Yeah, I just couldn't get along with people. The funny thing is, I was getting along with people well above my
Older.
age because I was
Yeah.
working and selling hats and making hats, but like kids, my peers, I had no relationship with. So
Right.
I would sit and eat my lunch in the stall of the bathroom, and I would sketch hats, and that would just be my
Right.
escape.
So did you feel misunderstood, or why did you prefer isolation?
Yeah, I mean, kids, I think especially at that age, junior high, high school, they're trying to figure themselves out. I
Yeah, and if
think.
you're against conformity, I think you're like a target almost.
Yeah. And, they're doing stupid stuff to get attention and, acting out and just doing dumb stuff. And I think just where I was, just like I knew what I wanted to do in my life. I wanted to make clothes and be a part of popular culture, fan fashion perspective. And I knew I wanted to do that. So I was like, I don't need to go, do stupid stuff on the weekends. I don't need to act out. I don't need to misbehave and try to get attention that way or do something dumb in class. And I was just like, what, forget that. I'm just going to stay on my path. And when kids finally wake up and realize, what's happening, and great, and they'll see what I'm doing, and that might make sense to them. If not, that's great. And eventually, hopefully, I'll find some kids that understand what I'm doing and want to be friends. Until then, I'll sit here and
Right.
sketch my paper.
Honestly, that I feel like that almost the idea of being misunderstood for because you have a bigger vision happens almost at any age, including like especially when you're young, but even as you keep getting older and older, because people prefer conformity, and when you're against the grain, it's just an easy target. It's what why are you doing this? What are you doing? You know, I'm guessing that along your journey, you must have had a lot of noise as well. How did you block that out?
Oh man, that was the thing. Is my grades sucked.
Right,
Like I was a horrible student, and I think
right,
that was one of the frustrating things for me. And it's funny because I read about so many different entrepreneurs who've had the same story as me. They sucked at school, dropped out, failed out, whatever it was. And that was the thing and that was very difficult situation that I had, whether it was teachers or counselors. Your grades suck. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're not going to be a successful person in life because you're getting C's and maybe D's, and you got to get your grades better. And I'm like, I'll do my best. I'm going to
hmm
try my hardest. If I'm not passionate about biology, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give as much effort as I can to pass the class. But
right.
I'm not going to be an A student. I'm not maybe going to be a B student, but to me, that's okay because I know where I'm going. And I haven't so far walked into a meeting yet where they were like, can you present your high school report card?
What was your GPA in high
Yeah,
school?
exactly. What was your high school GPA? Said no whatever in a meeting in the past 15 years.
It's funny you say that because growing up, I had a lot of pressure to perform, to always be top, always get the best grades, to perform, perform, perform. So I always had a lot of pressure on that end, and honestly, coming through the other side after college, I realized the school system almost feels like they're just indoctrinating you to just do as they say. And, like you said, the teachers were saying, this guy's not going to be successful. He's getting bad grades. But it almost feels one dimensional. It's like, well, they have a certain aspect of how they see success, which is, do as you're told, get a decent paycheck, and that's it. Keep quiet. Right. So it's against the grain thing, like we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we could take a whole other podcast to go and talk about the
Yeah.
school system and how I
Oh,
think it
yeah.
fails kids and that. But to me, there's two schools in life. There's the school, like there's the book, where you got to study and whatever the classes are in your respective school, whatever that is. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the street school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough, I think, starting to work for the baseball cap company I did, and then becoming a ball boy for the Chicago Bulls, their half of high school. And I got a whole other education that I think has helped me, I know has helped way more than anything I ever learned in the school, like the regular school stuff. So I know so many kids that I was straight A's. I got straight A's in high school, straight A's in college. And it's like,
Right.
they don't know what they get out into the real world and they have no clue what to do. They've never had a real job, even if it was like an after school job or a summer job. Never had one. Don't even know
Yeah.
what to do. Don't even know the first thing about it. So it's like, great, you got straight A's, and in the school world, you did well, you were successful. But now, what are you doing?
Right. I like how you call it the school world because it almost is a completely separate world compared to life. Because in life, there's a lot of collaboration, you know, brainstorming, problem solving. And oftentimes you're in school, it's very isolated, very, memorize this, take this test, do it, everything by yourself. So obviously there's a couple of team projects and sure, but it definitely doesn't equate to success in life unless you're doing other things outside of it.
Agree.
hmm So I do want to ask, you mentioned the idea of, manifesting your dreams forward. I think that's a very interesting topic. Do you mind explaining that a little bit?
Yeah, I tell my team this all the time. Um, if you believe it, you can achieve it, and I think that's an important thing. And I still work on that every day. I mean, you have these negative thoughts that pop in your head, but that's the one thing that I realized is like so many things that I've done and accomplished in my life. I saw it happen like before it happened, and I like the Dave Matthews Band was a cool example. Was
hmm
I was a big fan of the band, and I was in Virginia for some other business or whatever, and I'm like, you know what, their headquarters isn't far away, and I drove to the headquarters, just sat in the parking lot for a minute, and I said, at some point, I'm going to work with this band,
hmm Wow.
and fast forward, Dave Matthews Band 2023 tour. We're going to have hats and tees and hoodies and stuff like that on it, and so many different things. Even as a young child, my first musical experience was going to the Grand Ole Opry, and I sat there in one of the pews, and that is one of the most special places to go see any kind of music, even if you're not a fan of country music, whatever it is that they're playing that night. It's just such a cool, beautiful venue to go to. And at that point, I'm like, I know, even at a very young age, I'm not talented enough to be on that stage, but I know that this clothes thing, this hat thing that I'm dreaming up, like that's going to be my place.
hmm
That like they're going to have something here that I'm going to be a part of this somehow, some way. Um, and I think that's one of the words that I can't is I
hmm
can't, like it's I'll say it once, I'm not saying it again, but
I'll
it's
blur it out.
yeah, blur it out. But like, yeah, but that's just a word that it drives me nuts, because if you keep saying I can't do this, then you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So, how can you're going to fail at life at things? You've got to be able to tell yourself that you can do it, because if it's not coming out of you, then there's nothing that you can say, I can say, anyone can say that's going to help you do it.
Right. I think the idea of manifesting kind of gets a bad rep from some people, because I've heard it from people, say like, oh, that's just that's a load of crap, that doesn't happen. But what I really think, if you come down to it, the idea is wholeheartedly believing in something to the point where you visualize it and you feel it to your core, which is what we call conviction, right? It's believing in something. And then I think what tends to start happening is, in the mind, you start seeing opportunities, you see doors open for what you truly want, as opposed to the idea of saying, "Oh, that doesn't work." Then you're right, it won't work for you, right? The brain will filter it out and it will say, "Okay, this doesn't work, so I'm not looking for it." I think that's a key part to the idea of chasing your dreams, honestly.
Couldn't agree more.
hmm And I'm sure that once you start seeing the little wins add up, it really makes the dream come true, right? So I think a lot of us want to shoot for the big wins immediately. It's, why do I not have 1 million subscribers? Why do I not have this many sales? But I think it's when the small wins are stacking up is when that conviction starts to gain momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I joke all the time with my team. I go, "We're a 17-year overnight success." I mean, because
Right.
I mean, because that's the thing with social media these days
Mm,
talk to people and say, "Wow, it seems like this just happened overnight." No, it's
yeah.
like, and because social media is like, oh, this guy's doing this and he's doing that, and this lady's doing that, and she's doing this, and because that's all you see.
Yeah.
But and my wife tells people that all the time. Is like, what you don't see is like, she's known me from now 9 to 10 years, and she's like, it's been a constant grind, and it's like, okay, this client said no in this area. Well, you found another client in that same vertical that's just as big as them. You figured it out.
Right.
COVID happened, and your business was relying on all things for live events. That was your
Yeah.
business. You still figured out, okay, like, but that's what I'm saying is like, I was put on this planet to do this, to start Sportique and run Sportique, and it's like, you're gonna have to bury me, like, in order for me not to to reach the goals and dreams that I have, because I've been manifesting this. I will figure out a way. There's gonna be roadblocks.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a global pandemic, but like, okay, like, sure, okay, we can't do this, we can't do this. I said it again, sorry, but like, okay, but what can we do? And let's go, let's do that. So we bring up COVID. Okay, sure. All of our clients were relying on in-person events.
Yeah.
You know what? We have global brands that we work with that had put their web stores on the back burner for years and years because they didn't need to rely on that income, because they just had people coming through the doors.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, let's go focus on your web business, and you're a global brand. You have followers or investors that have huge, millions and millions of followers. And if you say, hey, wear this t-shirt or wear this sweatshirt, they're going to figure out a way to buy it. So
Yep.
that's what we did. We worked with our global partner, our brands that we work with, and said, hey, we're going to figure out, we're going to give you better web images. We're going to do, work from home things. We're going to do add more content together. And we figured out a way to help our clients succeed when there was no live events, and we had a huge production facility at 35,000 square feet we built in December 2019 that we needed to keep going, and
Right.
we figured out a way to keep it going, even if it was whatever we needed to do to continue on to keep that production facility moving. Like, we figured out a way.
Yeah. It seems like the mind will start asking questions in a different way almost, right? So it's like, how can I do this? Or how can I get there? Or you start seeing connections where you might not have if you just close that portion off. So that's so important.
Yes, 3 to 5 in the morning. There's so many different times I'll pop up out of my sleep. I'm like, I didn't even think about that, and just jot a note down and then go right back to sleep. I still do
Right,
it.
right. Yeah, just a bunch of random notes on your like notes app or whatever. um, but yeah, so I think it's really interesting idea because even growing up when I went to college, when I was initially pre-med, I remember why I chose going to Emory in Atlanta was because I wanted to work at the CDC. And, many people would have thought that was kind of crazy, right? Because, you're young, you're a college kid, what do you have to offer for, national government facility? So, long story short, I kept that conviction and, I kept looking. I kept my eye. I guess in a way, kept your eye open for doors. And eventually, I met this random person who said, "Okay, meet this other person." I meet this other person. I like, okay, what do you want to do? I just tell them about my dreams and ideas, and they literally just freaked out. And they go, "My dad is part of the Doctors Without Borders admissions team. You should go talk to him." I talked to him at this event, and there's all these CDC people there. I tell them I would love to work at the CDC, and then that's kind of how it happens. So it's almost crazy how life works in connecting dots when that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. If you're putting it out there, you're saying things out loud, you're manifesting it, you're thinking about it. Not only thinking about it, you're talking about it. So then
Yeah,
it's like, and once you start saying things out loud, that who knows? That's one thing I learned in 33 years now I've been in this industry is you never know who you're in the room with. Where
yeah,
it could be at a coffee shop, you don't know. And so just randomly talking to people and finding out things that interest them and finding out their story, and you never know where that might lead nowhere, but you might build an amazing connection that you could mutually help each other. I think the
right.
other thing too is, um, our logo is the buffalo,
Hmm.
and we made our logo the buffalo because of what the buffalo stood for. There's so many different things that the buffalo can do, and we knew when we started Sportique 17 years ago. At that point, and we were going into a huge recession again, and I was leaving a really good job. My partner was leaving a really good job. People, like, you're crazy. What are you doing? You've got a good job, and your partner's got a good job, and you guys got a good setup where you're at. Why are you going to go start your own thing? Why are you going to do that? And when we were looking at logos and what we wanted the logo to be, we both stopped at the buffalo because we started studying more about it. The buffalo is the only animal that when a storm is coming understands that the quickest way through the storm is to run through it.
Hmm.
All the other animals run away from the storm, and
Right.
eventually the storm is going to catch up to you. But the buffalo's like, F this, see the storm. All right, I'm going straight through it, and we're going to get through
Right.
it as quickly as possible. And so that was yeah, we knew there's going to be a lot of bumps and roadblocks and people saying no, but we're just like, we're going to take the mindset of the buffalo and just put our heads down and run right through it. And
Right.
also, they can run at 60 miles an hour and pivot on a dime. And we knew that would be part of the
Really.
business too. Yeah. So like that. So we started reading more about this stuff, and I can go on. That's probably another podcast, all the traits of the buffalo. But that was one of the things too. So it's like, I have that visual every day because all of our product has got our red, sure, like that's got our red woven label with the buffalo on it.
Right.
All the product has that. It's like, that's my reminder every day. And that's one of the things I try to have that visual. Now in the millions of units that we've sold around the world, it's like, you see that. Hopefully now we can tell these stories on podcasts or whatever. It's like, okay, like that's the mindset I need to have, because
Hmm.
there's going to be people that tell me I can't do it. There's going to be people,
Right.
this roadblock's going to pop up. This is going to happen. This is going to happen in my life. But you know what? Keep my head down, because if you're truly passionate about it and believe it, then you can cheat.
What helped you stay anchored in those times where you felt like all the noise around you is telling you that this is crazy, you this is not a good idea, what are you doing, why are you throwing your life away, things like that, right? So you have this conviction, this vision, and only you truly can understand it, right, through your own mind, but everybody else around you sees it as maybe irrational. So what kept you anchored and focused?
Um, one of the things that I found that really helped me is, I was introduced to yoga about now 10 years ago. And it's something I've made a habit of at least 2 or 3 times a week to be able to do. And I figure out a time block, and it's not easy as being a business owner, a dad of a 5-year-old and 3-year-old and a husband and all the other things that I do in my day, but like to figure out some time to go do that, because like I'm able to block out all the noise and just focus on the different movements that I have to do, the breathing, what I have to do to accomplish that hour-long session. I think that was a big thing, and that's helped ground me. I think the other thing too is I've been doing this long enough, doing this now for three years to know enough now. There's gonna be stuff that pops up. No matter how successful Sporty continues to be, there's gonna be stuff that's gonna pop up, a roadblock, and it's just like, okay, I can choose to let this just completely make me crumble and just make me want to crawl in a hole and hide and disappear, or do we just say, okay, how can I look at this roadblock and make me better? How can it make myself better, and how can it make Sportique better, and how can we learn from this? So I think that it is looking at some of those things now is like, okay, this happened, but what became of that? I became a better person, or we became a better company because of it. So looking at some of those roadblocks as positive things, as opposed to, oh, this bad thing happened. Oh, this bad thing happened to me, and spiral into this negative world where nothing you do is good enough. And I've been there. It's very difficult to do. But I found like there's just find some of the little wins, because you can do that. As silly as it is, I read something recently. A Navy SEAL said, make your bed every morning. And I just started doing this. As silly as it was, it's like, as crappy as your day, if you wake up, the first thing you do is make your bed in the morning. As crappy as your day could be after that, you at least know you accomplished one thing in the day.
Right.
You made your bed, and you go to bed at night, your bed's made. How great is it to get into a made bed? So if you take one little tidbit today, for people listening, make your bed in the morning. I'm telling you, you get home at night, you're like, okay, I have a made bed. I did that today, no matter how crappy I got this made bed. So start with that.
It's like it's the small wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think, like you mentioned, the idea of the spiral, the downward spiral, it's like a negative feedback loop. Once you start going down that rabbit hole, it's really hard to come out. And I think the biggest thing is you feel like a sense of shame and guilt that you have these aspirations, and then you're here, so you have this cognitive dissonance of, this is who I want to be, why am I here? So you're trying to make these big leaps, but it really is about the small wins to get back up there, because that negative spiral goes fast, and it takes time to come back up out of a positive mindset.
Oh man, I completely agree. And I still struggle with that. Spiral. And it could be something as silly as my 3-year-old saying she doesn't want me. She only wants her mama. Like my 5-year-old won't talk to me because I didn't draw the right picture or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, I'm the worst dad ever. And just go down this rabbit hole. Like, oh man, I'm not good enough for my kids. I'm not good enough for my wife. It's just, and I fully admit, I get there sometimes. And I think one of the things that has helped me out of this is saying now, getting to neutral. And you don't get too high, you don't get too low. But one of the exercises that I've done to help me get out of the spiral is just focusing on what you have to do next in your day, not 18 things for what you got to do 2 days from now, a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, and start, oh my God, I didn't do this and I got to get this. What is the next thing in your day that you have to do? I have to get off this podcast and I have to jump into it. I have to get on another meeting. I talk about NBA playoffs today, NHL playoffs, and talk to this person. Like what, but like, what is the next person? Like, what is the next thing that I have to do today? And that's all you focus on.
Yeah.
Not focus on anything else. And so like, that's helped me get out of some of those downward spiral thoughts, is just think about the one next thing that you have to do in the sequence of your day, and just focus on that, and then focus on the next one, and then focus on the next one, and don't think about anything for the future.
Yeah. When I first got into podcasts, I started watching Dean Graziosi's podcast, and he talks about needle movers all the time. And I think that really stuck with me through the hard times, because if you can just do 1 to 3 needle movers a day, even though you're still in this negative feedback loop and you're slowly trying to climb out, those small wins add up, right? So then when you start getting momentum again and you start seeing bigger wins, and you can, just like there's a downward spiral, there's also an upward spiral too. And I think the thing about life is trying to figure out, because there's always going to be ups and downs. It's trying to figure out how to stay grounded almost in a way. And I think yoga and meditation and all these things that you're practicing, I think really help the mind.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, I use the Calm app. I mean, there's like the 7-minute meditation. It's just something I try to incorporate now into my day, along with the yoga and exercise too. Can't do some sort of exercise. I think is critical for everyone, because it's a great way. I love it. Starts in the morning. Even if I can't get to a yoga class, I'll get on my treadmill at home or do something physically active. And I'm not a scientist. There's a lot of other smarter people that you might be able to have on the podcast that could tell you that the real benefits of the exercise. But I just, for my novice information, I could just tell you it's very helpful. So I would highly recommend it to.
Fitness is absolutely huge, because I think what starts to happen is your mind wants to quit when you're exercising. And when you can push that, you build discipline. And when you can build physical discipline, you start to build mental discipline too, right? So, you say, oh, am I good enough to be in this boardroom? And you're like, well, I can push through physical exertion, and it builds that confidence to take things on that are more mentally daunting. At least that's what I've noticed in fitness.
Yeah, for sure. To your point though, there were years of being in Sportique where I somehow would get in the room with these powerful executives, and I'm like, what the F am I doing here? I'm like, I'm like DiCaprio on the Titanic, where he gets to go to that one meal with all the, the first class people. He's like, whoa, what is this guy doing here? And I used to have those moments, and then I realized, okay, I did this, so I could be here today, so I could get a seat at this table, so I can talk to this person and that person. So I think that's, one of the key things is just to keep remembering some small wins, because that's very helpful for your mindset.
Why do you think that is, that we have that portion in our heads that we're constantly over criticizing maybe, or too hard on yourself in a way? Is that, you think it's more of a defense mechanism, or a way that's there to push you to do more if you feel like you're not doing enough? Why do you think we have that?
I think it's worse now more than ever, to be honest, because of social media, because of
That's true. Instagram
and Facebook and TikTok. I mean, you only see a small portion of someone's day. You see one picture, and there's another 23 hours and 59 minutes that you didn't see that day. And I think that so many people are now on these devices nonstop, and you're seeing this person have that, or this person got to do this, and it's like it is causing this negative self-worth, because, oh man, I didn't get to do that, and those guys got to go to Coachella, and I didn't get to go to Coachella. Or this guy is a billionaire now, and there's a million, and I really think that's a negative thing. So that's the one thing that I would say is, really limiting the screen time. And I think, and again, I think there's more and more studies coming out that's saying, this is not healthy.
It's very addictive.
Yeah. And so I think, can you just focus on the things that you have, are your tasks for the day? And again, what are some of the little wins? Because there's always going to be some guy doing this or some woman doing that, and great, good for them. I'm happy for them, but don't let yourself future trip really focus on what they have. Focus on what is your next task for the day.
Right. It reminds me of the quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that's exactly what it is, right? You might even have some big wins in your own life. I'm sure we all do. And we start comparing it to somebody else's wins. when, like you said, all you see is a snapshot of their day, when in reality it's more like a never-ending movie of, what's happening behind the scenes. You don't see them working till late nights, or, stressing out, or, whatever it is. All you see is the end product, and then you make that comparison, and that really takes the joy out of your own life, because you're just comparing yourself to everybody.
Yeah, agreed.
I do want to ask, because you found yourself at a very early age of what you wanted to do and your vision. What advice do you give for the audience watching? Because majority of the audience is, in their 20s to 40s. What if someone on the younger side doesn't know at all what they want or what they want to do? What is your advice for figuring out their vision?
That's okay. I talk to 20 somethings all the time, 30 somethings, 40 somethings. And I always joke with all of them, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You got a lot of
Yeah.
time. I mean, so what I tell people is, what are your interests? What
Mhm.
are you passionate about? What are you excited to talk about? What are you excited about when you wake up in the morning to learn more about, to be a part of? Like, and then, okay, great. This thing, that A, B, I'm interested in A, I'm interested in B, I'm interested in C. Great, awesome. That's awesome. So if those are your interests and that's where your passions lie, then what are some different ways that you can get involved somehow, some way, in some capacity in that vertical, in that business? Um, that's because if you're able to do that, then you're not going to be working, if you will. You'll be working really hard potentially, but it's going to be on something that you're really passionate about and you really enjoy. Because I've seen people's work so hard that they don't like what they do, and it's what's work. That's what it
Yeah.
is. But but you have to be humble enough, no matter what age, to be like, okay, like, I'm really passionate about this. I want to learn more about this. I don't know much about it, but I know that this is where my passion lies. You're not going to be the vice president of the company when you apply right out of the gate. And I think that's what people, like, again, back to the social media thing. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I've never done anything, but yeah, I think I should be, I just graduated college last month, and yep, I think the VP or the director title is the title that I deserve because I got
Right.
straight A's in college.
Right.
Um, and so that's a thing, is like,
Yeah. I think that's really good advice. Dabbling in things and just figuring out your interests first. And I think the other part of the advice you were giving is delayed gratification, which is getting harder and harder than ever before, with 2-hour prime delivery and, fast food and on demand streaming from Netflix or whatever, right? You have all these instantly gratifying tools and, you know of items at your disposal instantaneously. So this idea of waiting it out and patience, right? What is it Gary says is Gary V says, micro speed macro patience. I think that's becoming harder than ever before, with all the stuff like you had mentioned, social media especially, because I think as humans, we always look for the shortcut. What's the easiest way to something? And then it's like, okay, I want to start a podcast. I've heard this several times. It's like, I want to start a podcast. And then you'll see somebody start a podcast, and then 4 episodes in, they're like, wow, this was a lot of work. You know, and then it just drops. And, I don't think those people were adequately prepared mentally to say, this could take 5 years, this could take 10 years before I actually see any big growth. And that was actually a conversation I had to have with myself was, am I okay with doing this for 10 years before I see anything? And, I had to think about that, because I didn't want to start something that I was just going to drop immediately. So, I thought about it and I said, okay, I'm going to give it my best shot, and if that takes 10 years, so be it. But I think that time horizon is something people don't think about long enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
Is that something you thought about at a young age?
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I mean, I wanted everything to happen tomorrow too, but like I
Yeah.
realized that's not the plan. That's not really to go from just starting a company to go from multi-million dollars in sales is more than likely not going to happen overnight. But that's the patience. But I knew that like I almost like took this mindset. I'm going to be like a ninja at night, and no one's going to see me, and then everyone's going to wake up in the morning, and boutique's going to be
Right.
everywhere, and it's like so like stealth mode, and
Right.
like but yeah, now I realize like what I'm struggling with now is the time with my kids, you know, and that's the thing too, is like I used to do these crazy trips where I'd be like 14 cities in 17 days, like starting Sportique, like some of my friends in New York will tell you like, oh yeah, like Jason would be on my couch for like, you know, like, for like a month because he would like work the whole East Coast, like Florida to, you know,
Yeah.
Massachusetts, and instead of flying back to Phoenix, would, you know, come back to New York and stay for the weekend. It's like it is not easy, but I knew like again back to the passion, like why am I on this earth? Like I'm on this earth to make Sportique a global brand for and stand for comfort. So like in knowing like each meeting that I'm doing, each podcast that I do, each thing, each person that I talk to is one person's going to tell another person, this will tell another person, and the organic growth is the best way to do
Yeah.
it.
Word of mouth, for sure. What is the balance like with that now that you have a family? And obviously they're of high importance too. So where do you find that sense of balance in your life?
It's tough. I mean, especially like right now, this moment, this second, we're in the NBA and NHL playoffs. And
Mm-hmm.
this time of year, it's like the teams are like, oh my God, look at us. Like we had our first playoff game and we sold out of this style at halftime. We need more for the next game. And so it's like, this is happening real time, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So it's like, you know, my phone's doing this and that, and this person's calling and that person's calling. But, you know, the hour that I get, or hour and a half that I get, you know, if I get home at 5:30, 6:30, my kids go down about 7:30, 8:30, I am like, okay, the hour that I'm going to put in with them right now, I am programming, helping program a person, a real human being. And if they just see
Yeah.
me, you know, like walking around with a phone, with, you know, I'm not there with them, like they feel that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest, you know, balances that I'm trying to do right now is you make sure that I'm present. There's some stuff I'm not going to be able to make. I'm not going to be able to make sometimes my daughter's t-ball game, um, you know, gymnastics practice or whatever. But when I am there, I'm there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the key things. And and I can lock eyes with my kid, and she knows that I'm there with her, or
Yeah.
I'm in that moment, in that reading that story with her, or I just watched her do a cartwheel, whatever it was, drew that picture with her, like that we have that time, and that's so critical for me. But then again, when I go away and I'm Jason business owner, making sure that like whoever I'm with at the time, like they're getting their full attention. I'm giving my full
Right.
attention to them as well too, because that's important too.
I've asked, quite a few successful business people that same question, and it often ends up the exact same way about being mindful and present in the moment, because you might not always be available, but when you are available, you should be 100% mindful and present. And like you said, kids, I think, can sense that, and they can also sense when there is neglect, right? So that's why I think it's important to be there, you know, even if you're not there at every event, but when you are at the event, they know that you're not just, texting away on your phone. You got ton of things to do, and it's like, oh, what's next? And but they think that, okay, well, he's present with me, and I think that is truly, I think that's where the balance stems from. It's not actually time balance, but mindfulness of where you are.
Couldn't agree more.
Hmm. So, Jason, I always love to ask guests this question to end off the show. The show is called Learn or Be Learned. So I always ask, what is a big life lesson that either you learned from somebody or you want the audience to learn from your own journey in life?
One of the ones that I like is, and this has helped me grow my business, is know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. And I think that's one of the key things is, I might shock some listeners here, but you're not going to be good at everything. It's not possible. So, sorry to burst your bubble if you think I'm the best at everything. Not possible. Not happening. So I think that's one of the things that I learned really early on in starting business is, okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at? And then what kind of, people, what kind of talent can I find to help shore up some of the things that I'm not good at? When you're building a team and you're building a house, you're building this foundation, you've got to have that solid. You're the people you're bringing around you, especially when you're starting a business, family, whatever it is, like those foundational pieces have to be solid. And I'm fortunate enough to have my director of sales has been with me since the inception of Sportique. My director of operations has been with me since the inception of Sportique. My creative director has been with me since the inception of Sportique. Like some of those key pieces, that we solved for right out of the gate. My business partner has been with me since the beginning of Sportique. I can help sell. I'm good at selling. I'm good at marketing, and I'm good at, doing some of the ambassador stuff for Sportique, but some of those other items, I can do some creative stuff too. But, we need to solve for. So that was one of the key things that I had is when you're building something, figure out, you have to really have an honest chat with yourself. What am I good at? What am I not good at? And how do I, bring some other people that can, help us build this foundation?
What do you look for in finding the right people for your vision?
Honesty and trust. I mean, I think, and passion. I mean, I think those are some things that are critical because, you can have people come and tell you this or that, and they're not being honest with you. You're not going to succeed if you're not able to have honest conversation. And I'm not right every single time, and I think I'm not the smartest guy in the room majority of the time, but I have people that have been around me long enough to be like, hey, listen, you're thinking this way, you need to think this way, and we have an honest conversation about, hey, can you figure out a way to get our vision across here and make Sportique even better. So and trustworthy. I mean, if you say you're going to do something, that means you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think some of those are, and when you're starting a new business, you're telling prospective clients or beginning clients just starting out with you, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to deliver in such and such a time. The product's going to be like this. If you're not being honest with them, you're not, being truthful with them, you're going to fall flat on your ass. So I think some of those are critical things to have when you're building a team, to have those personality traits.
So true. I think passion is definitely something I realized when I started is finding people on the team is not just about skill set. It's about, are they also on board with your vision? Because if they're not really in it to win it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But Jason, thank you so much for being on this show. I think the audience is going to love this episode and talk. I really appreciate your time.
Shiva, my pleasure. Thanks so much for the time.
Of course.